say just about the time that we're in when this has happened, that we've lost Scott. And the coronavirus is what I'm talking about. And I feel so blessed. I feel so blessed and honored to be here, to be able to share in the service for Scott. Because as a hospital chaplain, I think the hardest thing for me in this time has been watching all these people pass away and not be able to have a time like this for closure. And to me, closure is so important when we lose a loved one. And it's important to do it now and not 5 weeks, 8 weeks, whenever we're going to be allowed to do these things. And so I'm just grateful for you girls and for Carol for allowing this to happen so that we can be a part of this for Scott. So thank you for that. So some of the things I wanted to say about Scott, I guess I've known him for 25 years. Jenny and Katie were just little munchkins. And I just remember a lot of Super Bowls with Scott and his presence there. I think of him as a Renaissance man. I didn't see him very often as the girls got older, but when I did see him, I never knew what he was going to do. Pierced ear, long hair, no hair. And I love that about him because that takes a brave soul and to step out like that today. And I love that about him, that he wasn't afraid to make a statement, and he was very comfortable in doing that. And then I remember during my youngest child, Becky, who had cancer, Carol and Scott and Jenny and Katie were a big part of helping my Mandy through that time. And I remember Scott, and I think Mandy felt great comfort in Mr. Scott, she would call, except when he would push her on that swing. Yikes. And I remember she would come home and she would say, Mom, I don't like being on that swing because Mr. Scott would push me so high. Of course, he would never let anything happen to her. But I just remember her saying that. I remember her telling me that she felt comfort here. And that's a lot for a little 5-year-old girl with a man. Of course, she had Carol and Jenny, but she felt very comfortable with Scott and being here. I also remember last 10, 15 years, Scott being in a lot of pain, and how I hurt for him to live in that pain, because none of us understand that unless we've been there. And for us to judge is unfair. We don't know unless we've lived in chronic pain what that's like. And I've never lived in chronic pain, so I have no idea what that's like. We all have our aches, pains, whatever. And my heart hurt for him because slowly but surely things got taken away from him. Golf, activities, work. And then when Carol called me 6 weeks ago and told me what they thought they might be facing, this was before doctors were involved, I was devastated because I see this. I knew this wasn't going to be good. I prayed hard. Scott was going to be the miracle that beat this. He did beat it, but not in the way we wanted him to beat it. We wanted him to be here, but he did beat it. I'm glad that he was able to be here for most of that time with Carol and with the girls, mom, other sisters, and had that time with them. I'm also glad that it wasn't that long. And I know sometimes that sounds harsh, but it wasn't that long in hindsight. It was a short time. I will always remember him, as I know family and friends will always remember him and his soul. And I know where he is. And I know he's in good hands. And so now I'll pass on to any of you.
Okay. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
Yeah, I didn't mean to point at
Oh
you.
no, I'll start. No.
No, I'm just saying if you just want to.
I really appreciate Scott. When my parents moved down here, I really appreciate how well he took care of my mother and father when it was just Carol and Scott here. I'm also proud to say that I'm one of the survivors of a car ride from Scott from the airport. If you've ever been in a car with Scott, you
I can imagine.
yes, it's treacherous and scary. But I survived many car rides from the airport when I came visiting. And we just, over the couple years that I've lived here, I was happy. We shared a lot of funny text messages and memes and political things on Facebook that probably not a lot of people would appreciate or understand. And he will definitely be missed.
I have to ask, what's her name? Okay.
So I think my favorite and also least favorite thing about Dad was how much he knew. It was really cool to have, like, especially when I was younger, a little more gullible and naive, like, to have someone who just knew an answer to everything, whether it was the right answer or not. Like, I believed everything he said. He always said, like, I know everything, blah, blah. So, like, getting older, as I started to learn things, it annoyed me because I was like, well, I know stuff too, Dad. Like, come on. He would try to, like, give me physical therapy advice and I'd be like, hang on. But I feel like it helped me be, like, a more wise person. And also, in the kitchen, he knew a lot. And that's one of my big passions now, cooking for people. And he gave me a lot of tips. And also things to not do. Like, he loved repeating recipes over. Remember the fajita chicken? Like, just to learn from, you know, like, you don't always want to be just like your culinary role model. So that's my biggest thing, I think. You don't have to say.
So I only knew Scott for a year and a half, but I do have some fond memories. What? Yeah, it's a little weird. That's okay. No, it's fine. So one night when Carol was out of town, we came over and made Scott dinner. I think we made like chicken pot pie or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the pot pie was good, but what was so fun about that night was we sat in front of the TV and watched sumo wrestling for like 2 hours. I'd never watched sumo wrestling in my life. And he knew everything there was to know about it. He knew every single wrestler. He knew like their record.
Like, nothing
and
made sense. It was all in a different language.
So he was explaining
like,
everything.
like,
And it was
what's this
so
mean?
intriguing. And that was so much fun to just sit there and watch sumo wrestling. Another time I was watching TV with him about 2 months ago was when I talked to him about asking Jenny to marry me. And I told him I was going to ask Jenny. And he didn't really say anything. He just looked at me and he went. And I was like, okay, yeah. Like,
I guess that's it.
I guess that's my go ahead.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, good memories.
So I was probably his favorite brother-in-law.
Also known as a nemesis, isn't that the word?
Yeah, we didn't connect on a lot of levels, but from a distance, no, really, seriously, I always appreciated, like Ellen said before, you know, what he did for mom and dad, continued to do up until the end. I mean, that was a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of thought. And, you know, we actually unfriended, I don't know who unfriended who, I think I unfriended him on Facebook about 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't know, well, anyway, but we reconnected and I was able to express my gratitude towards him, taking care of my sister. And I know he was we kind of competed as to whose kids are doing better when they're growing up. You know, he was so proud of Katie and Jenny and stuff and their accomplishments, and so we trash talked a bit. But yeah, and I'm just totally confident where he is, his relationship with the Lord, and like it was said before, I mean, we all have our personal demons and battles and fights and things we have to go up against, and but we do have a merciful God, and I'm sure of where Scott is now, and love you, man. Talk to you soon. Just talk, Mom.
Oh, I just talk. Oh, you're holding that and you, I thought you were talking into it.
I was, Mom.
I'm not high tech.
I'm not either.
Well, anyway, I know I'm gonna miss Scott because he's been very helpful to me as a widow. And he always helped me out as much as he could. And I could always depend on him. And he was very good to my daughter. That's it.
Everything just happened really quickly, so it's just hard to believe he's not here anymore. But I did take care of him for a long time. He was sick for a long time, and his quality of life for a long time was terrible. He spent a lot of time in his chair and wasn't able to do things that everybody else could do, but he kept a really good attitude and a good sense of humor. And he loved me deeply. And I'm just really gonna miss him. That's all. And what do you want to say about Pa? Anything? You don't have to say anything. Tell one thing about Pa. What funny thing did Pa do? No? Okay.
Okay, yeah, one of my memories was going to be about the things that he knew too, so it's definitely a real memory, but yeah, and I mean, anytime, you know, you had a car problem, or a house problem, or a computer problem, or a cell phone service problem, or we could go on, he was always the first person to call and help you figure that out, so yeah, we'll definitely miss that about him. He and I are very similar in a lot of ways, so in knowing him, also feel like I've gotten to know myself a little bit better too. So yeah, I also remember him at the pool and the beach. Always got very tan.
So tan.
Never wore a shirt. Always wore a small bathing suit.
That was tough when you were a teenager, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So love being out in the sun. So yeah, that was a lot of family vacations and summer days were spent doing those things. So yeah, we will definitely miss him and know that God gave him to Jenny and I as our dad for a reason, and we're thankful for that. And yeah, just even though it's such a terrible time for it all to happen, it's also like a special time to just I feel like with the coronavirus, death is so much more real and apparent everywhere, you know, a lot of people who weren't being touched by death are being touched by death because it's so much more frequent now, and so seeing so much death all around the world, and then of your father could be a really scary thing, or a dark, gloomy thing, but just with the timing 2 days after Easter, where we're celebrating, you know, Christ's resurrection, and that he defeated death, and that now that he's defeated death, we don't have to fear death. I don't have to be afraid every day that I'm going to get the coronavirus and die, because dying to me, that's not scary. That's just a part of life, and I just don't know when it's going to happen. So really thanking the Lord for that timing so close to Easter, where we could have just reflected on how death has been defeated, and then to have this happen, yeah, just grateful for the memory of Jesus' resurrection so close to that.
How many years did Scott work at IBM? This was one of his accomplishments that nobody talks about. 39 years, 38 years, 39 years at IBM. During all those years, since I'm not a kid, there was so many major layoffs, RIFs, RIFs, reduction in forces. And every time I'm going, oh man, Scott's gonna get hit this time. And every time he survived each one. That was amazing. That has to be, I don't know, there's some kind of talent there to be able to have that kind of longevity.
At 58 years old. Which
Yeah.
is really.
That was
I
very
also
cool.
looked at his like totals, like each year how much he made, and seeing how much he started out making, which was like nothing. Like
well, he didn't go to
what,
college.
like,
He
yeah,
didn't
what like a
finish college.
cafeteria worker maybe could make. And then like going to making so much money and being able to support all of us and mom not having to work. That's like very, very impressive. He really dedicated himself to his job.
Right, that is an accomplishment. Living here in the, Research Triangle where IBM is huge, the layoffs with IBM just continued.
Sure.
Just worried. Well, shall we move to the tree?
Yeah.
And do the
Who
tree?
wants to plant it?
Did you want to play it? I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, you should have.
Russell and Anaya.
All right, you want to do it? I'll do it.
Shot